Tony Amato here with Amato Roofing, and we're back today talking about cutting metal. We've been cutting metal for, we put our first metal roof on probably about 25 years ago, putting this metal on roofs, building pole buildings. We've used a lot of it, we've cut a lot of it, we've grown and learned over the years. So we're going to take you all the way back to where we were young and dumb and what we did back then. Take you all the way up to, well, we're old and still dumb with some of the stuff that we do, but we'll show you what worked, what didn't work, the progression of some of these tools, and some of the things we settled back on, some of the stuff that we liked back in the old days. So we'll start with way back in the day. Way back in the day, these right here, well, let me do an overview real quick. So back in the day, these were our main tools. We had a utility knife, just a regular old pair of snips, and we did a lot of our cuts with these. We'd cross cut with our snips, and believe it or not, we would rip metal with a utility knife. Believe it or not, I'm going to show you how we did it. Then we started getting a little crafty. We get a little tool in the tool trailer with a nibbler. And this nibbler, we attempted to do cross cuts with it, and we did rips with it. Some things worked, some things didn't work, and we'll show you that. Then we step up into this design, which we call this one a nibbler because it nibbles out a piece of material, whereas this one works more like a pair of scissors, and it's more of a shear, I believe. If we were to have some kind of correct terminology, then we jump all the way up to, this is kind of the latest and greatest nibbler that everybody's talking about. They seem to like it. I think the verdict is still out on this one, and we'll get to that, and I'll tell you why. So let's go all the way back to in the day, 25 years ago. Here was little Tony Amato cutting metal, and you know, the boss is yelling and he's hanging steel, and I'm down on the ground and I'm supposed to be cutting stuff, and these are the tools that I got. So, and I'll tell you what, once you cut enough of these, I still to this day will grab this pair of snips and I will make a cross cut, and I'll tell you what, a lot of times I can still cut a piece of metal just as good or better with these than any tool down here. But it comes with cutting hundreds and hundreds of sheets of steel. So we got a line marked out here. Say the boss ordered the sheet 6 inches too long, which he does every time. Apparently his tape measure's broke. We give this a little bit of up pressure. We pull up on it just slightly, and that actually helps us as we cut through. Ta-da! Do about 100 of those a day. Tell me how your hand feels. So I get that cut, and then the boss man yells. He says, I don't need a full sheet. I only need 22 inches of it. So next thing you know, I'm grabbing my tape measure, measuring 22 inches. So 22 inches, and all I got to make this rip. Say this is a roof sheet on a barn. Those roof sheets on a barn can be anywhere from 25 to, we've done some 40 foot long. So imagine young dumb Tony down there on the ground with this 25 foot sheet and utility knife. Well, here it goes. So my 22 inches is pretty stinking close to this rib right here, the smaller little rib. So I'm going to come in here and score that metal right on that little rib. Try and score it in the same place every time. Try and not yank this across my finger. Try and go home with the 10 that I showed up with. Nice, hard, even score. Imagine doing that down a 25-foot long sheet while the boss is up there yelling at you that you're taking too long. I'd take my snips, give a little snip on the start, a little snip on the finish, bend it over. Again, imagine doing this on a 26-foot sheet. You'd have to do it a little bit at a time. We'd squeeze it, work down, come back up, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. Squeeze it tight on that score. Believe it or not, there's how you rip a sheet of steel with a utility knife. A lot of people want to buy this stuff on their own and do their own roofs, do their own pole barns, and they ask, "Hey Tony, what kind of tools do I need to get the job done?" If you're a caveman, right here. That's all you need to get the job done. So we now step up in the world. We step up in the world and we buy one of these. You can buy one of these just about anywhere. DeWalt makes a pretty nice one. If you haven't caught on, we kind of like DeWalt tools. I don't know why, I just like everything to match, I guess. So this nibbler, electric nibbler, has some good things and has some bad things. So the good thing is all I got to do is pull the trigger instead of working my hand. But like everything, this has some good parts and this has some bad parts. So we want to make a cross cut with this. This isn't the best for a cross cut because we have to fight up and down these ribs to get it to cut. So make us a little line just to see if I can even follow a line, make it somewhat realistic. And we'll see how this cross cut goes. I just see it does it. It does it. I kind of make it look a little easier than it is because I have done this thousands of times. You get a new guy and you try to tell him to make a cross cut with this. He's really going to be fighting with it, fighting to get over these ribs. It's really not designed for this kind of cut. Also, the other thing you want to notice is you see this 1/4 inch of material that's curling up. So that's something that you're going to have with this tool, is it's going to eat up a 1/4 inch of material. And on an end cut like this, it doesn't really matter, but it does come into play when you're notching around a window, when you're cutting a rip or something like that. It comes into play that this is going to eat up a 1/4 inch of material when it makes its cut. Here's the other thing. It's been so long I forgot this. So as I'm pushing across this cut, I'm dragging this cord. I'm pushing this way, the cord's dragging, it's giving me friction, it's giving me pressure back here. I'm always fighting it. They do make a cordless version of this, but I'll tell you what, even the cordless version still isn't my favorite on a cross cut, but they are really nice on a rip. So I'll show you how this does a rip. So again, imagine we got a 25, 28 foot long sheet that we need to rip. We're not using this anymore. We're going to use this. But we need to pay attention because of that 1/4 inch material that it takes up, which side of the line that we're cutting on. This really cuts rips like butter, like butter. The other thing that I like about this, so it rips through the metal like butter. The other thing that this does, even though it eats up a 1/4 inch of our material, is it gives me two beautiful finishes. The left side looks good, the right side looks good. It does all of its crinkling on that 1/4 inch that it's peeling up. So when I make this rip, I've got a beautiful half and a beautiful half that I could tuck into J channel. I could do whatever I want with them, and they're not going to be all ripply, which I'll get back to that when we step up to the next one. So that's your nibbler. The other thing that I'll mention about this is when we're doing a long sheet, when we're doing a 25, 30-foot long sheet, and we're running along with this corded model, I haven't used this one a lot because we have other tools, but I still keep it around because it has its uses. When we were using this every day, this cord would get shredded by the metal. As you drag it along and you're cutting this, you're always going to be pulling this cord. It's going to be cutting on the edge of the sheet. It's going to be cutting on your fresh cut edge that you made. And you never really know when it's going to be the day that your electric cord bites you. You never really know when it's going to bite you when it finally cuts through, hits that metal, lights you up. So it was never a good thing. I always hoped and prayed if we were still using one of these, we'd get the cordless model, and that would do away with that issue, the cord getting cut on the metal. So now we'll step up to a couple different companies make these. Again, we just kind of like DeWalt. Everything matches, everything looks cool. It looks professional on the job site. This is what we go with. We actually used to use a different company, and we used that for years until, I don't know if DeWalt didn't have one or if we hadn't found it yet. But once we found this one, we actually like it. We think it's a little more compact. It locks on their impacts pretty slick. We actually mount them what a lot of people would consider upside down. And I'll show you why we mount it upside down. Got my little cheater screw in there. Put my little cheater screw in that big rib. That big rib actually gets covered up. So that little hole I put in that big rib isn't going to affect anything. If we were actually installing this on a building, I could still use that cheater screw like that. I don't need an extra hand holding for me. All my guys can be on the job. They could be doing production. I'm a one-man show down here cutting. So when we make a cross cut with this, I believe this was actually designed to be flipped around the other way. So you would be using it like this. The same thing I said with that nibbler, as I'm fighting up and down that rib, my battery hits and it fights me when I'm fighting that rib. So we flip this thing upside down, and this is actually how I run this tool, upside down like this. Now I can work it up and down these ribs. I got plenty of clearance under here. I'm not hitting anything, and we can burn across this pretty good. Not too shabby. What we will notice, and you really see it come through when we do the rip. So this is probably my favorite for the crosscut. There's no real fight over the ribs. It's fast. It gets the job done. When we go and make a rip with this, by the way the tool's designed, one blade's stationary and the other blade gives you your action. So what that does in the finished product, it's going to give us one pretty side and it's going to give us one ripply side. So when you're making your measurements and you're thinking about your cut, if there's a side that you want to save, you need to think about which side you come from to have your good side still savable. Again, it goes through like butter on a rip. But if you look close at this cut, this side didn't put any ripple in the metal, whereas this side over here, you see the ripple from the action of that tool. So if I wanted this to be pretty, I'd almost have to come back in and cut this again, come from the other way, cut it again to get two pretty sides out of this tool. So we've done our utility knife, we've done our snips. We graduated up to this guy. We go to this guy. We're on to what's in the industry, a lot of guys are calling the latest and the greatest, is these nibblers here. A couple different companies make them. DeWalt doesn't have one yet. DeWalt, you got to step up your game. When you do, I'm going to buy one. I'm going to check it out. But so for right now, this one's green. And the reviews that I read told me that this one was better than some of the other ones. So this is the one that I picked up. They said it run a little smoother. Right off the bat, it just feels like a log in my hand. There's absolutely, do you run this thing with one hand? Do you run it with two hands? It's just big and fat. It just doesn't fit in the hand comfortably. You can spin the head around to cut different directions. I can't find one that's really comfortable. I can't find one where the cutting edge is really visible. The cutting edge, the way this is designed, is kind of hidden. All of these tools, the cutting edge is right visible. You can see what you're doing. This is super hard for me to follow a line. And the work that we do, cutting around a window, notching around something, you got to see your lines. You got to be able to cut on them. It's hard to see the line. It doesn't feel good in the hand. Maybe I haven't used it enough. Maybe I need to get a few more hundred cuts under my belt to be comfortable with it. So this nibbler gave us our 1/4 inch curly Q of scrap. When we run this actually gives us little moon-shaped shavings that are just going to fall to the ground. So that's the other thing I'm not a fan about, is this just kind of leaves a mess underneath of it. So if you're cutting in somebody's yard, they got little kids that want to run around in bare feet, you're going to get these little moon-shaped pieces of metal. A lot of guys talk about throwing a tarp down, cutting over a tarp, cutting something like that. I just know that on a job site you're always going to kind of move your cut station to follow the crew. It's just never a perfect world scenario. So let's attempt to cross cut with this thing and see how it goes. Keep in mind, she's brand new. I'm kind of brand new to using it, but I've never struggled with a tool quite like that in my life. One of the things that they do tout about this thing is that you could cut circles, you can cut whatever. I'm having a hard time cutting a straight line. I'm having a hard time getting a feel for it. wasn't horrible. Fighting over the rib is a thing. I actually had this turn the other way so it would cut sideways. My guys on my crew, for some reason, thought it should be the other way. I turn it to the side. That way I could fight over these ribs and I have movement. If I'm trying to cross cut, now again, my battery's hitting and I don't have movement. I feel this should be turned to the side, help you fight over the ribs. You did see I did make a rip with it where it did well on the rip, but again, I feel it's a little difficult to follow a straight line with it. It does give you a clean cut on both sides. Here's what you get. I don't know if you can see this, but that's the little moon shape cutouts. It's like a paper punch, and it just punches out all these little moon shapes. And my goodness, just look, imagine getting that between your toes, running around the yard, your client after you did a build for them, and you leave this behind everywhere. I say, maybe I haven't used it enough. I don't know. As of right now, I'm just not a fan. So we resort back to this. We do 99.9% of our stuff with this, and we love it. We named it Speedy, and that's just what we like. So there's again just the evolution of the metal cutting tools that we've used over the years. Like I say, still, we don't use this no more. Still run the snips quite a bit. This has its place when I want two nice clean edges. If we have a lot of rips to do, we want them really pretty. This thing here will do everything that we want, and jury's still out on that one. Tony Amato Roofing, that's your metal cutting tools that we keep in the tool trailer every day. Check us out on Facebook, look us up on the web, drop some comments. Tell me I'm stupid. Tell me you love this thing. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'd love to hear it. If you got a comment, I'd love to hear it about any of these tools, any tips, any pointers. Tell me what you got going on. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Tell your friends. Check us out on the next one.